Welcome to Celestial Insights, a weekly podcast that brings the stars down to earth. I'm your host, astrologer, coach, and intuitive Celeste Brooks. My purpose is to provide practical, unique, and insightful guidance to help you navigate the energies of the week like a boss. Hello, this is Celeste of Astrology by Celeste, and on this episode, I will discuss the astrology for the week of April 12th, 2026. On Saturday, April 18th, at the new Living Expo in San Rafael, California, I will be on an astrology panel with Gemini Bread and Little Lion King. It'll be hosted by Shima Moore, and we'll be talking about the astrology of this time. So you can go to newlivingexpo.com to learn more. If you attend, say hello. The theme of this week is the Knight of Swords, and there are three big things I want you to think about as you navigate the week. The first is that we have a balsamic moon at 9 degrees of Pisces, right near the degree where Mercury is stationed to go direct. So there's something here about revisiting, reflecting, and integrating what has come up over the past few weeks. The balsamic phase is the final phase of the lunar cycle, the few days before the new moon, and it's really meant for slowing down. This is not a time to push forward energy. Really take the opportunity to slow down. You may feel more tired, more inward, or just interested in being out of the world. Pisces is incredibly intuitive and creative. So while your body may want rest, the mind and the spirit can be active in very exciting ways. It could be a really fertile window for insights, intuitive hits, and you may just have moments where, something you've been trying to connect just clicks and you got it. So be open for powerful realizations or downloads. You might want to consider journaling. And whatever has been unclear since Mercury went into the sign of Pisces back in February may come to your conscious attention with a connection. A really nice aspect that perfected earlier in the day before the balsamic moon is that Venus in Taurus is sextile Jupiter in Cancer. This is very abundant and a nourishing combination. Yin sextiles, you can make your own magic. Venus brings blessings, Jupiter abundance, Jupiter invests in, and it rules benefactors. So if there's something you've been needing or wanting from a mentor or some other type of benefactor, now is a great time to ask if you need some support. People may be more willing to give, to invest, to be generous with their time or their money. How can you be generous to others is something you may be thinking about. You may think about what's worth investing your time, money, resources, and energy into. Each of the 8 phases lasts around 3.5 days, and the balsamic one is the final waning crescent. So if you look up in the sky, it's that thin sliver, almost like a C shape, just before it completely goes away in darkness for the new moon. So we are in the liminal spaces. If you're an astrologer ready to deepen your skills and grow your practice, I'm mentoring a small group through the Mentorship Program with the Organization of Professional Astrology. We'll meet monthly for 6 months to explore astrology practices, consultation skills, and building a sustainable business. If you'd like guidance, community, and support from someone who's walked the path, learn more at the link in the show notes. The next thing I want to make you aware of is that Mercury will move into the sign of Aries from April 14th through May 2nd. Mercury is the planet of communication, transportation, and commerce. I think we're going to feel this shift almost immediately because when it goes through that 29th degree of Pisces, it'll make a sextile to Uranus at 29 degrees of Taurus. So right away, there can be some kind of big news about markets or trade or something tied to money or resources with the Taurus energy. Uranus can bring disruptions, shocks, reversals, and sudden movements. Now, it's a sextile, so it's not going to be as tense as a square, but this offers us opportunities as well. It's a yin sextile, so make your own magic. Pay attention to these creative insights and intuitive hits. And Mercury was in Pisces since February 6th. That's a long time because of the retrograde cycle that we experienced. This mutable water sign that's imaginative and emotional and non-linear. Mercury prefers logic and clarity. So where things have felt foggy or uncertain or hard to pin down, you might get some needed clarity. Because as Mercury moves into Aries from that last degree of the last sign into the first degree of the first sign, which is cardinal initiating fire, your thoughts may become quicker, sharper, more direct. And there's a shift towards taking action. Now, once Mercury goes into Aries, it will report into Mars. So thinking and speaking start speeding up. You may notice that people communicate with more brevity, more confidence, and sometimes more bluntness or even rudeness. Ideas are not just floating around. They're ready for you to move and take action. But it's not a clean break into clarity because what's going to happen is on April 16th, Mercury meets Neptune, the planet of illusions, confusion, and delusion. So things can feel a little unclear or idealistic or misleading, but then the fog starts to lift even though it hasn't completely burned off. Now, Mercury rules communication systems, data, and information exchange, and Neptune rules the ocean and things that are hidden and anything that can dissolve or blur. And so when we put these two together, a literal manifestation may be that there's talk again about underwater communication infrastructure, specifically the global network of submarine cables that carry a lot of information, the world's internet and financial data through the ocean floor. These cables are absolutely critical for the modern world to function. So one of the concerns is with this war going on in the Middle East, that there could be disruption of these systems, and it could look like outages or technical failures or just heightened awareness about how vulnerable we are with the system being underwater and in a war zone. Be extra careful about hitting any links. The risk of deception could be heightened when Mercury and Neptune are conjunct. And as soon as Mercury leaves Neptune, it starts racing towards Mars and then Saturn. On April 19th, Mars meets Saturn at 7 degrees of Aries, and this is a highly explosive combination. And then on April 20th, Mercury meets Saturn at 7 degrees and then meets Mars at 8 degrees of Aries. So that's happening on Sunday and Monday of next week, but events may be coming in early. So just be prepared. This is a great week to download any bank statements or anything that you have in the cloud that you think you should put on your desktop with that Mercury, Mars, and Saturn coming together in Aries. There could be a war action that causes a big problem. You can think of this as ideas, action, and reality all colliding at once. Things can take on an urgency. Decisions need to be made quickly, and there's a sense that everything is accelerating, and it can feel combustible. So it's important to stay grounded. Try to maintain your equilibrium. People around you may be acting like something is an emergency because they didn't prepare properly. So as much as you can, just take a deep breath as the energy really heightens. And this is when working out and working with your body can be really helpful. Aries is cardinal fire. It wants movement, action, release. If you don't consciously move the energy, it can come out as impulsivity, frustration, or reactivity. So channel the fire intentionally. If you are part of the Cosmic Fire Challenge, go ahead and do your workout. And you can do it another time if you feel like it will help you manage with the intensity of the energy. And do it a second time if you feel like it will help you manage through the intensity of the energy. The last thing I want to make you aware of is that we have a new moon at 27 degrees of Aries on April 17th. As we reach near the end of Aries, the energy is trying to express itself. It's heightened before it leaves the sign. And in Aries, it's something pioneering or taking action or finishing a conflict or competing in some way. Right before the new moon perfects, the sun will meet Chiron and Eris at 26 degrees. And this makes the new moon really tightly conjunct Chiron. So something will have already happened, and Chiron is the wounded healer that will bring up themes of pain, vulnerability, or exposure. Chiron wounds can be a bit tough to deal with. And when it's activated in Aries, the wounds can be around identity, survival, the right to exist, and just be in the world, which can feel very raw. So some people may be feeling something coming to a head about all of the conflict that's going on around the world and just feeling a sense of their survival being a little bit threatened. So it's a good time to let the pain come up to your conscious attention so you can deal with it. Chiron and Eris, which is a dwarf planet and is the goddess of discord, have been moving together as a unit for quite some time, amplifying themes of disruption, discord, and the outsider. Really notice if you see someone who refuses to be silenced, demanding justice. And at the same time, at this new moon where we have the sun, Chiron, and Eris very tightly together, we have this tight concentration of planets in Aries at the other side of the sign at the beginning, where Neptune's at 2, Mercury's at 3, Mars at 5, and Saturn at 7 degrees of Aries. So this is a really tightly stacked combination, with Mercury and Mars caught between the Saturn-Neptune conjunction, which is the big theme of what we're dealing with, is a collective where there's themes of towers collapsing. Like this could be something about the war taking a turn where there is some big event coming. And there can be a mix of confusion or idealism. People can feel under a lot of pressure. It's very combustible. I'm sure we'll be seeing explosions somewhere. Neptune can blur reality, and Saturn can restrict and harden, and Mars wants to act, and Mercury's trying to make sense of things. This is a time where being careful with fire, sharp objects, gas, Neptune rules gas. Now, people can pop off and emotions can escalate quickly and reactions can be sharp and impulsive and sometimes extreme. Now, sometimes people need to get that out, and you can move with Chiron from a time of feeling hurt to healing when you dive deep into what happened that led to the eruption, you may have some awakenings. Now, we can see this in real world events, potentially through angry outbursts, protests, or destructive actions. There was a guy who was so angry about the poor wages he was being paid by Kimberly Clark. He set the warehouse on fire, and it's going to be causing a problem in terms of the supply chains around the country. This happened as Mars was in the sextile to Uranus. Mars in Pisces, sextile Uranus and Taurus. He's in jail, but he caused millions upon millions worth of damage. So it's really, I cannot stress how important it is to really be mindful of your surroundings and your safety over the next couple of weeks, especially while you're driving, because people are going to be very distracted. Aries rules fire, sharp objects, and immediate action. So slowing down and staying present, avoiding multitasking is a great way to avoid issues. This new moon also carries strong themes around leadership with the sun, conjunct Chiron and Eris, and moving towards a square with Pluto, the planet that rules power struggles. The sun is the leader. The leader's wounded, and someone's ready to stand up to them and enter into a power struggle. So there's symbolism around wounded leaders, potential challenges to authority, and there's already been a lot of conversations about leadership stability, particularly in the military, because by all accounts, the head of the military, Pete Hegseth, is in way over his head. This war is a disaster. And Army Secretary Dan Driscoll was asked by him to resign, and he said, no, I'm not resigning. So despite them pushing out a lot of top military officials, at least this one person is pushing back. This new moon could act as a trigger that intensifies these conversations, or something can become more concrete and break out into the public. And within 3.5 days, as we move to the waxing crescent of the moon cycle, we may see developments that point to shifts, disruptions, or challenges to those in power. And it could go as high as the president. There are calls for the 25th Amendment. So we'll see what happens. There's big tension building in political and religious spaces. There is conflict between the Christian nationalists and the Catholics that has broken out into our conscious view. It came out this week. Now, this could just play out as a war of words, but with all this intensity, it could lead to actions being taken. And the new moon is the beginning. It's asking for conscious action. So it may illuminate your most tender wounds, especially around identity and independence and how you assert yourself. But if you can be mindful that instead of reacting impulsively, just be aware, what is triggering this response within me? Could be something you're asking yourself. Relationships may also be strained as Libra sits opposite all of this Aries energy. And people may be shorter, more reactive, or less patient, especially with their loved ones. So just be mindful. But Venus is in Taurus, so that can be really supportive. If you lead with love, you can get through this like a champ. Venus is strong in Taurus, just as Mars is strong in Aries. And together, they can kind of balance each other between taking action and being steady. Some medicine for this new moon is to move your body, stay grounded, and be mindful. Slow down when you can and be cautious with anything sharp, heated, fast, in both literal and metaphorical ways. The episode is called The Knight of Swords, and that symbolism really captures the energy of this moment. In tarot, knights are messengers. They're the ones in motions, carrying information, acting on ideas, delivering something into the world. They're part of the court cards. The Knight of Swords can be fast, sharp, and relentless. Swords are mental energy. They're the air element. So you can think of communication, words as weapons, and ideas that move quickly, sometimes without pause, with the Knight of Swords. This is kind of a charging forward quality, like someone riding into battle, fueled by conviction. The imagery connects very clearly to what we're seeing collectively. There's a kind of jousting energy right now, a sense of ideological battles, conflicts of belief, and people speaking with intensity, sometimes without restraint. Words can feel like weapons in this environment. The president was cursing up a storm on Easter Sunday. Also, if you think about the symbolism of swords, historically, they were tied to conflict, to crusades, to moments when belief systems became something people were willing to fight for. Now, we're not necessarily seeing literal swords, but we could be seeing a battle of ideas, language, and competing worldviews. With so much Aries energy, especially Mars and Mercury traveling together, communication speeds up and sharpens. People speak more directly and aggressively. There's less filtering, more urgency, and a big impulse to assert your perspective. So if you have little kids, notice how their communication changes around this time. But you can use this energy with intention. It can bring clarity, truth, decisive action, powerful speech. And Jeffrey Epstein is a Knight of Swords. He was someone who gathered information to hold it over people, the compromat. So we'll see if anything comes out related to the investigations around his actions. The 2026 Lunar Planning Guide is a digital, fillable guide that walks you through each moon cycle with themes, major transits, and journal prompts so that you can stay aligned with the energy. And beyond the moon, it includes all the key astrology for the year, the retrograde, sign changes, and major planetary events that shape the collective story. If you're looking for a clear, practical way to stay organized and grounded, this will help you track your intentions and make sense of the shifting energies in 2026. It's only $22 and the link is in the show notes. On Sunday, the word of the day is splash. We start the week with the Aquarius moon, and Mars is conjunct Neptune at 2 Aries. It's really going to be interesting how we see Mars conjunct Neptune show up in the collective. Artemis is supposed to be coming back to Earth, so Mars, Neptune could be that splash, the astronauts coming back to Earth. But Mars conjunct Neptune can be someone ready to go to battle over their beliefs. It's holy war energy. And what I'm getting with this energy is a lot of passion. On Monday, the word of the day is excitement. The Aquarius moon will square Uranus at 29 degrees, and Venus in Taurus will sextile Jupiter, and they're both at 16 degrees. So Venus sextile Jupiter feels like beautiful celebratory energy, but the moon square Uranus is a bit of upheaval. So hopefully this is excitement and joy around something spectacular happening, like the astronauts coming back or some great news somewhere. Then the moon enters Pisces at 1:55 a.m. Pacific time. Now, people can be coming together with the moon in Pisces as it comes to meet the North Node at 8 Pisces. So what are people coming together in a group for? If you're at work, someone may just bring in a cake and you're like, why is there a cake here? Now, maybe it's someone's birthday, or maybe someone just felt like making a cake, and surprise, there's excitement in the office because they brought it in and you gather together around the water cooler to chat. On Tuesday, the word of the day is breakthrough. Mercury and Pisces sextiles Uranus and Taurus, both at 29 degrees. There can be exciting ideas that just come to you where you have mental breakthroughs. And then Mercury will enter Aries at 8:21 p.m. Pacific time. So there is going to be some big news. It's a world point, 0 degrees of Aries. And we may not hear about it until Wednesday, but this is cardinal initiating energy. You may be like in a different mood or headspace when you wake up on Wednesday morning than when you went to bed on Tuesday night. On Wednesday, the word of the day is subterfuge. Venus in Taurus is semi-square Mars in Aries. So this gives me like, oh, we're trying for peace, but there's still this energy of conflict right there. The moon enters Aries at 7:03 a.m. Pacific time. Aries is cardinal fire. It's time to get going, get moving, and then the moon will meet Mercury, Neptune, Mars, and then Saturn. So boom, 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 boom. This is a really big day. And there may be like breaking news about some huge story where some kind of deception comes to the surface and is revealed and people become aware of it. And it could be around like military stories. On Thursday, the word of the day is chaos. The Sun and Chiron and Eris will all meet right around 26 degrees of Aries. So something big is going on. Things are getting a little bit loud, even though we're in the balsamic moon phase. What is being spotlit about a leader who has a problem? Maybe people are getting louder and louder about the president's erratic behavior. The Aries moon will square Jupiter and Cancer, both at 17 degrees. Jupiter just makes everything bigger. So people can be really passionate or emotional. Cancer is a water sign. So there's big energy. This is kind of explosive with the Sun conjunct Chiron in Aries. And this is the day we see of Mercury, Neptune at 2 degrees. Really be mindful of your safety on this day. This feels very explosive. On Friday, the word of the day is hidden. The moon meets Chiron at 26 degrees, and then we have the new moon at 27 degrees of Aries at 4:51 a.m. Pacific time. New moons are times to set intentions about what you want to bring forward in your life. So look at what house you have Aries in your chart. What new starts do you want to make? Now, it's near the end of the sign, so there could be themes about like finishing something up. Or with Aries, this is like self-motivated energy, new starts. What is something that you maybe have been thinking about for a while, but it's an action you want to take that maybe makes your dreams come true, but it feels like it's a big reach, a stretch goal. Maybe start breaking it down in little pieces and come up with a plan to take steps towards it. And if you start something at this new moon that is a big project that you want to have come to fruition, you can use the moon phase families in order to help track your progress. These open a new story, the new moon, and then every 9 months, there's a pivot point where the moon is at approximately the same degree in the zodiac, but the sun has advanced and there are hard aspects that there can be an excitement where there's a pivot point in the same story. So the new moon today, the sun and the moon are both at 27 degrees of Aries, April 17th, 2026. So say you started like running because you want to run a marathon in a year and a half, and you start the training 9 months from now, where the sun is in Capricorn and the moon is in Aries, both at 25 degrees on January 15th, 2027. Maybe you built up a lot of strength in your muscles and you really notice a difference then. And it's like incredible where you started and where you are in those 9 months. At the full moon, October 14th of 2027, the sun in Libra and the moon in Aries, both at 21 degrees of the respective signs. This could be when you are running the marathon. And, you may be so impressed by how balanced you reacted as you move through this competition. Now you keep going in the last quarter moon where the sun is in Cancer and the moon is in Aries, both at 22 degrees, July 14th, 2028. Maybe you do a triathlon at this point because you move past just the running to the running, the biking, and the swimming. So just pay attention to what's going on with these cycles, especially if you have anything at the late degrees of Aries. There may be a story in your life. The moon will enter the sign of Taurus at 8:57 a.m. Pacific time. Taurus is fixed earth. There is this kind of urgency as you move through the end of Aries, and then you're ready to relax as we get into Taurus, to slow down. There's like this quickness and then this calm. The moon will square Pluto in Aquarius at 5 degrees. So there can be some real intensity that people are experiencing. It may be all internal for you, where there's some fear. Pluto can bring up subconscious fears, power struggles, embarrassment or shame around something related to resources. On Saturday, the word of the day is indulge. Mercury and Aries will sextile Pluto in Aquarius, both at 5 degrees. This is energy where people can be getting into really intense kind of arguments. And then Saturn and Aries is quincunx the South Node in Virgo. The South Node can send things down the drain, and Saturn and Aries, maybe you say something a little too harsh, or someone says something too harsh or critical with the South Node in Virgo. And then you're like, I'm out of here. I'm going to hang out with my friends. And then Moon meets Venus at 24 Taurus. So maybe you go out and indulge in ice cream with your friends because you're upset about the conversation or what have you. There's something very indulgent about the Moon and Venus together at 24 Taurus. So that's it for this week's episode. Feel free to email me at celeste@astrologybyceleste.com with any astrology in action stories. Take care, and I'll catch you next week. Thank you for listening to Celestial Insights. To learn more about my work, please visit my website, astrologybyceleste.com, where I offer personal readings, horary consultations, cosmic coaching, group events, and classes to help guide people to higher levels of fulfillment. You can also find me on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook at Astrology by Celeste. If you enjoyed Celestial Insights, please help others find the show. Follow, rate it 5 stars, or write a nice review. I would so appreciate it. I'm astrologer, coach, and intuitive Celeste Brooks, and I'll be back next week.